All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the story time, Stories with Mr. Faber. I am your host, Mr. Faber, and we are going to continue on our adventures of Atticus' story. Fantastic. Hopefully you've been enjoying this. This is part 3, which means if you have not yet heard part 2 or even part 1, stop this video right now. Go back, watch those so that you can catch up to where we are right now in the story. Excellent. We're going to go ahead and get started with our part 3. So, Atticus and Zales, they made it to the desert and they found a lonely, lonesome place where they could camp out. But, you know, in a desert, it isn't the easiest place to live. They had to find water, they had to find ways to get stuff because they weren't working, they had no money, they had to find ways to earn money to get food. And so they were doing that. I'm going to turn down that volume. I forgot how loud that lyrics is. In any case, they were looking for all that different stuff, and it took them several months to get used to living out there. Well, about 4 months in, 4 or 5 months, Atticus was out alone. Zales had gone off looking for something, and he was hot, you know, it was sunny and hot, and so he was just sort of like, he wanted some water, and so he saw his metal cup over there, and he's like, just come to me, cup, like he just wanted it to come to him because he didn't want to get up and get it. And all of a sudden this cup moved by itself towards Atticus, and he was like, okay, I must be having a mirage. And for those of you that don't know, a mirage is seeing something that's not really there, which happens sometimes when you're in extreme heat. So Atticus is watching as his cup is just sort of spinning around in front of him, and he's like, oh man, this is so cool because it looks real, and he's like tapping it and things like that, and he's like, I might as well enjoy it while I still can. So he decided to enjoy his mirage. He's like, I'm going to move this cactus with my mind, but it didn't move. He's like, I'm going to move the sand with my mind, and it didn't move, and he's like, okay, I'm going to move my swords with my mind, and all of a sudden the swords came shooting at him, and it's like, whoa, and he stopped him, like, before it hit him. He's thinking, okay, why is this so specific? Like, this mirage is so specific, it's moving metal, but that's it. And so he's like, all right, well, come with me, cup and swords, I got to find Zales, because maybe this isn't a mirage, and maybe something's really wrong. So he's walking around looking for Zales. All of a sudden, he sort of sees a shadow of a bird up in the sky. It doesn't really faze him too much until the bird explodes into a ball of fire, crashes to the ground, and blows up. And Atticus is like, what? And so he ran over to this crater, and he's like, he sees an arm in the crater, and he's like, oh no, oh no, oh no. And he's digging in the sand, and he sees it's Zales. And so he's like, Zales, no, 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 no. And so he's digging, and Zales pops her head out. She's like, did you see me? Did you see me? And Atticus is like, I don't know what I saw. She jumped out of the sand, and all of a sudden, Atticus saw she had wings on her back. And she's like, look what I can do! And she flies up into the sky, and without warning, releases fire from her fingertips. Atticus is like, whoa, 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 whoa. Do you see what's behind me right now? And she looked behind and saw this little cup and these two swords following him. And she's like, yeah, is that you? And Atticus is like, yeah, what's going on? And she's like, I don't know, but it's so cool. And so, as they continue to day after day play with their powers, they were developing them and seeing all the things that they could do. Zales found that she could not only create fire, but she could also withstand it. Like, it could sit on her hand, it could burn, and she wouldn't get hurt. Atticus realized that he could not only control metal, but he could almost taste the different types of metal. Like, he could taste copper. It was his favorite, was copper. But he could taste all these different flavors of metal, and so when he was, like, feeling underground for metals, he could tell what kind of metal he was pulling out. He was a little jealous, though, because he felt like Zales, she's got these two powers. She's got these mutated wings that she can fly around in, and then she's got this ability to shoot fire, and he only has metal, so he made himself like this metal surfboard so that he could fly, too. But they continued playing with their powers. They were having so much fun. Unfortunately, someone else was watching them. Someone very, very powerful. The United States military has satellites that take camera shots of the entire globe all over the place to check in on people. And as it happened, there happened to be a camera shot of two teenagers, one who could shoot fire out of her hands and one who had the ability to move metal. And the generals were not happy. One of the generals was saying, we need to eliminate them right away. They are a threat to the American country. What do you suggest, sir? Well, let us send a regiment in and destroy them. Sir, that's not a good idea. Why? Well, because, sir, the boy controls metal. If you send a regiment with metal weapons, he might get angry and, I don't know, accidentally kill our soldiers. No, right. What if we did this, sir? What if we pretended we were giving them an honor or something like that, trick them, and then kill them the next chance we got? Excellent idea, excellent idea. Let's plan that instead. And so it was planned. The military was going to trick Atticus and Zales so that they could kill them for the good of the nation. Meanwhile, Atticus and Zales, unaware of anything that was going on over there, continued to play with their powers, learning to refine them and using them for their entertainment, because there was little entertainment in the desert. Atticus built a metal house, of course, but what he really liked to do was try to make intricate things. So you often saw him blindfolded as he tried to create something just using his mind. Zales, she loved her science experiments, and so she often had a little fire blade on her finger, and she would do things like melt metal or create chemical changes with things that she found, and both of them were very fascinated in their powers. Well, one day, A white soldier, a white uniformed soldier came walking through the desert. Atticus, who had 3 metal ball bearings spinning around, dropped him immediately, and Zales, who had her little fire blade, snuffed it out. The soldier came up to them and said, "Excuse me, are you Atticus and Zales, the ones who can move metal and fire?" And they're like, "What? No, she's crazy. We don't do stuff like that. What's going on?" The soldier is like, don't worry. We've seen you do it. We think you're amazing. We want you to be our new superheroes of our country." And Atticus was like, "Yes! Oh, yeah! I'm going to be a superhero. Zales, I'm going to be a superhero." And Zales is like, "I don't know if I like this, Atticus." And Atticus is like, come on, let's go. And the soldier's like, this way, come on, this way. And so as they're going, Atticus is coming up with names like what he wants to be as a superhero. He's like, what am I going to be? Metal Boy, Metal Man, the Metal Maniac. And Zales is like, "Atticus, I don't think this is a good idea. The military has never been known to be like, hey, just show up with all this power and, let's welcome it." Atticus is like, "Don't worry about it." All of a sudden the soldier is like telling them, "Do you mind if you guys blindfold yourselves? We have a surprise for you just around the corner." Atticus is like, "Yes, absolutely. Give me the blindfold. Come on, Zales. Come on, let's go. And Zales is like, "Oh, Atticus, I really don't like this idea. I don't like it at all." Atticus is like, "Don't worry. It'll be fine. Come on." And he blindfolds himself. And they walk carefully around the area until they get to the spot where the soldier leaves them right on this big red X. And surrounding them are a couple hundred soldiers with their weapons aimed right at them. So Atticus is waiting, and Zales is like, "No, Atticus, no." All of a sudden they shoot their guns, but Atticus sort of feels these bullets. He puts his hands up and stops all these bullets like in a wall. Zales pulls off her blindfold. She looks at Atticus, and she's like, "Really, Atticus?" And Atticus pulls off his blindfold. He's like, "Oops, maybe I was wrong." And Zales is like, "You think?" And she shoots up into the sky, and she starts shooting fire down from the sky. Now, she's not trying to kill anyone still. She's just trying to scare them. And I don't know if you've ever seen fire falling from the heavens, but if you did, you might be a little scared, just like these soldiers were. They started running for it. Atticus wanted to scare him too, so he picked up one of their tanks that had been abandoned. He lifted it up, and he dropped it on another tank. Shoom! Boom! And it blew up. And everyone was freaking out, and Atticus was like, "Yeah, you better run! You don't mess with me! You don't mess with me!" And Zales is like, "Come on, Atticus, let's go." And so they took off. Atticus got on his metal surfboard, Zales flying, and they raced back to the best place where they could get coverage, which is not in a desert, but in a forested area, which was back home. Yes, after a whole year of being out in the desert, Zales and Atticus decided to return home. Now, Zales, of course, went straight to her family, but Atticus, he was not so sure. And so he went to go visit his family. He wanted to see them, but he wasn't sure if he should go in. Meanwhile, the military was left without a trace of Atticus or Zales. Atticus walked up to his home, and it was almost like he had never left. He saw all those familiar things that he would have seen. He walked up to the door, and he wanted so badly to knock. But instead, he decided to look through the window because he knew he shouldn't. The reason he left was because he was dangerous. He shouldn't go in now. Things haven't changed, and now, if anything, he's got more power, so maybe he's more dangerous. So instead of going in, he just looks through the window and he sees something that puts his heart into his throat. He sees his mom and he sees his dad sitting there at the table, holding hands and talking like they normally would, but instead of talking to Zeus, he noticed that there's someone else at the table. It's actually Adora. You see, Adora, she had not given up on Atticus, even though he had given up on her. She had figured out where he lived, went to the house and every single day visited his mom and dad to see if Atticus had come home. On this particular day, she was there talking with them. Zeus was in his bedroom somewhere, and Atticus wanted so badly to see and reunite with those people. Before he could make a decision, though, his mom spotted a glimpse of him in the window. She ran, slammed open the door, and wrapped her arms around Atticus. "My baby has come home," she said, tears filling her eyes. Atticus's dad and Adora were not far behind, and all four of them had their arms around Atticus, holding him tight. And even though Atticus thought about his thing of being too dangerous, he couldn't help but be so glad that he was home. He let himself be embraced and hugged as many of the three as he could, tears filling his eyes, because he was finally back home. He wanted to show them and tell them all so much, and so he went inside and started telling the story of his time out in the desert and his newfound power. Well, Zeus had actually discovered at that very moment his own power. By this time, if you're not familiar with the timeline, Atticus is about 18, which means Zeus has turned about 16. And Zeus has just discovered in his room this ability that he had as well, because he was daydreaming, looking out his window, and had accidentally melted his window. He had discovered he had the power of moving glass with his mind. Well, he ran into the living room to tell his parents, and at that very moment, that is when Atticus was coming in. Zeus smiled and hugged his brother. "It's so good to see you again, Atticus. Look at what I can do." And Atticus is like, "Just a minute, let me show you something." And he starts showing off his metal powers, and everyone's like, "Whoa." And he's talking about how they were fighting in the desert. And Zeus is like, "That's so cool. Guess what I can do." And Atticus... everyone was like, "Not now, Atticus. Not now, Zeus. Atticus is here." And so he's telling more of the story, and Zeus is like, that's cool. Guess what I can do?" And they're like, "Not now, Zeus. Atticus is here." And so Zeus was really upset. He was being ignored. He was the one that stayed home. He still walked outside and slammed the door. He's like, "Maybe I'll run away so you can notice." No one even said a thing. He walked down the street. He was so angry. He started smashing anything he could that was glass with his mind. Neighbors' houses and things like that. As he walked further down into town, into the sky-rising buildings, he started smashing those windows too. And he growled to himself, "I'll make them notice me. I'll make them notice me one way or another." And he started smashing all of those windows, and all the shards of glass that came down, he started swirling around himself like an ocean. And he actually pictured it as an ocean, and so started forming himself a glass ship that sort of floated on this ocean. And he stood up there on the ship, continuing to move through the streets, smashing windows left and right, creating this gigantic ocean of glass shards. Not killing anyone, but scaring everyone to death. So much so that the Seattle police gathered in a drove of 100 of them, and they cornered him at the end of the street and said, "Freeze!" And Zeus was so angry that in an instant he shot his power out and killed all 100 of them. Well, Zeus was right. He was going to get noticed by his family and by the world, because on the news the next day, in the front headline, it was "Mad Glass Killer Kills 100 Policemen." Atticus saw this front headline, and he thought to himself, "This is my fault. I shouldn't have come home, and now I've caused my brother to go mad. I have to go." That's it for part 3 of Adventures of Atticus. Thank you so much for listening. I'm sorry if there was some camera technicalities or something like that. I'm hoping that that won't happen too much, but thank you very much for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow with part 4, and you have a great day.